Okay, turn it into a ball. And you can just do it by just bouncing it back and forth and hitting all the edges. Like that. Now, as you do it, you might think, well, this is basic stuff. I'm just gonna pinch it around. What you're gonna do though is you're gonna push in with your thumbs, but if you just keep pushing in and don't lift up and push in from the outside, you're gonna get a big flat piece, okay? So as I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna push in and then I'm going to rotate around. And I'm rotating, so I'm pushing out with my thumb and then pushing in and lifting up with my outside hand. All the way down to the bottom, try not to get through. And we just go around and around and around. But if I'm not pushing in and up, my thumb is going to push out, and instead of keeping this in a semi-ball shape, it's going to come flying out. And there's nothing wrong with making some sort of a bowl or plate, except for that's not where we're going with this project. So do you see how I'm rotating my piece of clay, pushing out, pushing in and up? Just thinning that out a little bit at a time. Okay. Anyone want to remind me how thick I want my clay to be? I told you on the coil, on a slab. Maybe I didn't. Yeah.
Is it no thicker than your thumb?
Index, or sorry, pinky.
Oh.
So basically, it's 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch is how thick you want it. But that was good. Yeah. If it's your thumb, I mean, your thumb, you could make something that thick. It's just gonna dry for a long time. So we move that around, and we get a basic shape. And in the workable stage, which is what we're at, we're going for the basic shape. I'm not trying to get it smooth. Okay. Two things before we move on. If you want, down here, there are these little measuring sticks. You can also use them to kind of compress and paddle your clay. And I'm just holding on the inside. Helps to kind of bring it in, and you can kind of work that around. Now everyone's gonna have a slightly different vision of what refined is. I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to say this multiple times. Adding water to clean up your clay, especially at this stage, is not good. Okay? You think, oh, I want to clean up these little cracks or this imperfections. So I'm going to grab some water on a sponge and I'm just going to kind of wipe it around. And if I do that, there's enough water in there right now that the clay is holding itself. So if you can see that, it's like this. If you add water, it swells the clay particles, and when it dries, the water disappears, and we get these cracks that go through the clay particles. So if you add too much water, it will leave that void, and then you get cracking. And we don't want cracking. So if there's things that are inconsistent that you don't like, we have some little bumps here and whatever, let it dry a little bit. When it becomes leather hard, you can then take another tool or a sponge and clean them up. Okay, so there's a piece right there, and there's some chunks going on. It's leather hard. If you look at them, I'm pushing on that back and forth, and it's not bending much. Remember, did you feel what leather hard felt like?
No, we never felt.
Okay, I'm gonna send one around so you can feel it. But if you look at this one, see how the clay is moving?
Yeah.
Workable. Same pressure, not moving. So let me grab one you can feel. Here, I'll send this one around. So you can do that. This is one we started playing with, has a little face on there. Okay, from there, and again, this is not something you're going to do today because your piece won't be leather hard. So from there, you can come in with any number of tools. Our little loop tool, we can shave this a little bit. Our fettling knife, we can come in and clean that up a little bit. Make sure I'm in the, okay, you can come in with a sponge. Let's see if we can't get this to, and you can come in there. And with just a little bit of water, you can come in and clean that up. I'll send this around as well, right by, on the right side where the eye is. You'll see that it's smooth. On the other side, it's kind of chunky. Look at that. Again, the advice is, if you don't like something about it, we want to get to the shape now, and we'll refine it later. So we can clean it up, we can smooth it up later. Any questions on that? None? Okay. And later today, you are going to be making one or two of these little pinch pots to just practice. Now we're going to do a coil pot. Yeah.
What if your clay is like super uneven? See that little dip right there?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just like add clay to it?
So we'll do that in just a second. You can cut that off, you can add it, although right now is not the time, because if I cut it off now, it tends to flop.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's leather hard, like the one that's coming around, I can cut it off because it's more solid. Okay, we haven't talked about slabs yet, but I'm just going to take a piece of clay like this and pat it out into a slab. There are other ways to make slabs. We're going to learn how to throw them out, and I'm going to set that aside for a second. Okay, on a coil, again, you might think this is being basic, but to make a good coil, there's a few things you want to do. So I'm going to start by smushing this down so it's more rectangular, and then I'm going to hold it in my hands, and I'm just going to squish it around like this. So I'm squeezing any of the thick spots, and once it's about there, I'm going to start to roll it out. I'm not really worried that it's a perfect coil. I want it to be fairly uniform, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So now I'm going to roll this out, and as I do it, I'm going to push with my fingertips, kind of throw it through my hand and catch it with my wrist. I'm going to go back and forth, and anytime there's a thick spot that I can see or feel, I just will go and lightly hit that. Now, if I push the whole time, push all the way through, I'm actually going to create this into a flat piece. I don't want that. I'm going to throw this back and forth. Okay, I'm going to get it to about there, and I'm going to cut it, because I'm going to show you two ways of doing coils. Set that aside. Now, if your coil is starting to dry, and mine's not, but if it does, just get a little bit of water. It shouldn't be shiny, and you can roll into that, and that'll help to keep it smooth and compressed. Okay, that should be good there. Now, back here, we're going to learn about scoring and slipping real quick. When you make your piece today, you're going to make one or two pinch pots, a coil pot, so we can just kind of practice. We're actually prepping so that we can make some sculptures starting, I don't know what today is, Monday, next week, maybe the end of this week. So I'm going to come in here with a needle tool, And I like a needle tool over my fettling knife because I can run that around, where with a fettling knife I have to turn it because it has to follow the blade. Or my needle tool, it's the same cutting surface all the way around. And I'm going to set that there. Now, do you remember what the term or what scoring was?
Like carve and carving.
Close.
Like scratching.
It's like scratching. What did you? So it's to make some surface area or some indents. So I'm just going to take this and sorry, I was going to call that a fettling knife. This serrated rib, and I'm going to create these little marks there. Okay. And on my coil, not all of these are going to actually touch, but I'm just going to give it a quick score here. And on the other side. And then if I need to, I'll do some spot scoring. Then I'm going to take some slip. Here's some slip. Some of you found some slip on your tables. If you ever need slip, there's always a bucket or two over there, and you just lift one of the lids and you'll see it. And you either dip another container in and pour it into your little jar or cup there, or you can just dip in. It doesn't matter to me what you do. Like over the weekend, I put some in yours this morning, but this one over here I didn't get to, and if you were to feel it, it's pretty hard because it's been just sitting out. So add just a little bit of slip all the way around. Why do we add slip?
It's like a glue.
It acts like a glue. So it'll take 2 pieces of clay and help move the water back and forth so that the clays kind of meld together. All right, this is a little bit small, so I'm going to cut here. Now, as I do this, I'm going to start to wrap this around. Right here, I can either cut it so that my pieces join, or I can wrap it up and over. And I'm going to wrap it up and over. I'm going to push that down, add some slip up top. And it doesn't take much because our clay is workable. Okay, you see how I'm wrapping that up? Like so. And now I'm going to go back and I'm going to compress this. Containment and compression are some of the biggest things that our clay projects want. Containment, which means I'm telling it where to go, so I'm holding it so it stays in a specific spot, and compression so that the clay pushes together. So I'm just going to kind of squeeze this, kind of like I did with the pinch pot. Squeeze that together. Okay, give this a score there, a little bit of slip. And we're going to move this up. I'm going to start there. Now, when you're doing a coil pot, if you want the coils or your piece to go straight up, you put it straight on top. If you want it to go out, you put it on the outer edge. And if you want it to go in, you put it on the inner edge. So I'll show you that here. So this one, I want it to start tipping in, so I will push that towards the middle. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. Now, flatten these out a little bit. Now, something that we're going to do, because we're going to turn these into sculptures, we're going to get rid of all of these lines. Okay? All of the coil lines. And I'm going to do that. I can do that a couple ways. I can just use my fingers and smooth that out. If my clay is a little bit harder, I can use my serrated rib. And you should do this on the ground because you have a little bit more stability. But you come in here and you clean that up. And I'm just basically scraping one coil through the other. And then back to building, we get our basic shape, the basics of what you want. Then when it starts to get a little hard, you can come in and refine it. So on this one, now I'm going to come in with my regular metal rib. I'm just going to compress this down. Again, I'm not trying to make it super smooth. I'm just trying to get rid of those coils. And see if you can see this. Normally I would do this so that my edge of my table is right here, and I would hold, and I can come up from the bottom without hitting the table. So I would normally do it just like this. I wouldn't normally lift it because then we get weird kind of stretching of the clay. Okay, so we got our basic form. We come in here and clean this up. 2 ways of building so far, right? Now, there's another way of doing a coil. So those were kind of round coils. And this one I'm going to put out here. And then I'm just going to come in and flatten that out. So it's going to make it skinny from the start. The biggest issue with this is if you do a bunch of them, they're going to get floppy really quick as we start to put them on. But I'm going to cut the bottom just straightish. It doesn't have to be perfect because clay does move. You could cut the top too. If you were finished with your piece and just wanted to put one nice uniform piece of clay on top, you could cut that so it's just that. Okay, on the edge, I'm going to score it. And again, I like to bring it to the edge of my table, and I can just cruise through like this. I'm going to put this on this one. I could put it on either. I'm going to score on the inside a little bit. Just give it a quick look. I don't need that much. Add a little bit of slip. Push that together because I want this to go in. And now I'm going to bring it right here. Let's see if you can see that real close. And bring it right here. And instead of cutting it straight, I'm going to cut it at an angle. Okay, that's probably the first time I'll say that, but I'll say it a lot of times. These angles or these bevels make our pieces go together better. So I'm going to come and cut this at a bevel or an angle. Inside piece comes out. And then, do you see, maybe not, how those pieces go together? But they're still, instead of being butted up like this, they're overlapped a little bit. But they're not going to give us a huge bulge or lip. Okay. Compress that together. I'm just using my finger. You can use the serrated rib. You can use a wood knife if you want to. anything that helps compress that clay. And if it's not doing what you want, like there's a little thin spot there, take a little tiny coil, little tiny scoring, a bit of slip, and put it in that spot. And then I'm going to kind of meld it or weld it into place. Use our needle tool if we want, get those things stitched together. So all I did was push that together. So when you're making, do you see how that brought that in a little bit? Okay, so it was coming out, now it's in. And from there I could bring it in more if I wanted to make a bottle, or I could bring it back out if I want to make a little vase. Another tool you can use, there's some of these little rolling pins. They're just dowels, and I can use that on where my shoulder is, kind of compress that. Come back here. Remember that we're making the shape first, and then we'll refine it. And even in the leather hard stage, you can refine it a little bit. You can shave it away. I'm going to clean up the inside seam. And there. Now, again, my rim's a little bit off. So when it becomes leather hard, like this one, and I haven't refined this all the way, I can come in with some sort of a tool and clean that up and kind of refine that so it's flat. But in the leather hard stage, it cuts better than in the workable stage. If I try to cut this right now, it's going to kind of wobble and collapse on me. Okay, so we've got to know our stages. So workable, leather hard. We don't want to be working in bone dry for a while, and what we can do at those stages. Okay, any questions so far? Yes?
Every time you're attaching something, you have to score it.
You should.
You should.
Depends on who you talk to. Anytime you have clay, I can take this clay and I can really compress it together, and I don't have to score and slip it, and it'll stay. As beginners, I would recommend you score and slip and compress, because you're going to learn how to do that. If we were working on leather hard clay, and I want to, this is not what a handle looks like, just so you know, but if I wanted to attach a handle to it, okay, workable clay and leather hard clay are at different consistencies, so if I don't score and slip that, the chance of the handle wanting to dry and pop off goes up. So I could just compress this in, but if I score and slip it, the chances of it surviving are pretty good. Just compressing, the chances of surviving go down a little bit. So we want to practice scoring and slipping and those things. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so